Hey everybody, and welcome back to, I guess a kind of end of season review for the English Football Premier League, and also we'll take a little look at fantasy football as well, because I know I haven't managed to do a lot on that recently, but it has been a vintage season. I think this season it's been very, very interesting, very great. Obviously, at the time of me recording this, the Champions League finals and Europa League finals, which feature 4 English teams, incredibly, the first time that's ever happened from any nation, still haven't been played. I'll probably do another video after that, but I thought it would be fun to just talk about the season, and also I've got up a video I did at the beginning of the season with my predictions, and we can look at how wrong I was. So where do we start? I guess let's start with fantasy football. Because of everything that was going on for me personally, a lot of the last few weeks of the season, or mainly actually probably around about sort of February, March time, I wasn't 100% dialed in and did miss a few deadlines and wasn't managed to swap some players out and things like that. So I had some pretty poor weeks going through. In terms of the Plays Cup, I finished 5th, which is not terrible, I guess, out of 15. Good way off of the top space there from Vegard Thorvaldsen, who, if you want to try and contact me either on Twitter or here on YouTube, then I can send you your prize for winning the league. We'll do another one next year for sure. But yeah, some good results there. I think if we kind of look back on May, you can kind of see where it all went wrong for me. April, yeah, down there as well. Wasn't really managing to pay that much attention during some of these. February was pretty good. It kind of fell apart after that, to be completely honest with you, but that's okay. You know, these things happen, don't they? I guess maybe they have like a team of the season, do they? Yeah, they do. Oh no, they have a team of the week, I guess, for there. But it was an all right season. I think I got more points than I did last year, which I'm very happy about. Can only look to improve. Actually, I probably didn't, because overall I was 1.1 million, and I think last year I was definitely under 1 million, wasn't I? So maybe I did worse than last year, but as I said, a few problems there. Under 500,000 in England, and you can see how few Palace fans are actually there. Under 6,300 for Palace. So yeah, there we go. Some very average weeks, I'd say, and I'm still very happy though that I got 97 points there, game week 32. Okay, that's good. Still very happy that, where is it that I got my record over 100 points? There we go, 110 points in 1 week, which I'm actually quite proud of. That's the highest I've ever got. So that will be a highlight of the season for sure. Now, to the actual football. I guess you guys all know how. I'm not spoiling anything by showing the league table, am I? Manchester City won the Premier League. It was probably the most ridiculous season for Manchester City and Liverpool in terms of how close that was. I know that Man City did win it technically on goal difference with that like last minute Aguero goal at one time, but the difference here I think is that Liverpool lost 1 game all season. He scored 89 goals, conceded only 22, and finished on 97 points and came second. That for me is incomprehensible right now. I think we'll look back on that for years and just be like, what more really could Liverpool have done? I mean, people can say, they dropped points there, dropped points there. 97 points would pretty much win you the Premier League in every other season, barring last season when Man City got 100 points, I think. But yeah, if we look, 93, so they would have won it in 2006, 16, 17. They would have won it there easily, 87. They would have won it there, 87 again. I think pretty much they would have won it any other season, barring this one. just a phenomenal achievement from both teams. I think I said at the beginning of the season, if we have a look at my little prediction video here, I said Man City would win and Liverpool would come second, but I did say that I thought it would be exceptionally close, and I wouldn't have been surprised if Liverpool did manage to just nick it. It's tough to take, I guess, if you're a Liverpool fan, but you can feel proud that I don't think they could have given any more. I know people might say, 7 draws, that's where you blew it or whatever, but like as I said, it's ridiculous to say that, because they would have had to have had a near perfect season to actually beat Man City. I know that at one stage they were quite far ahead, and then a few of the draws came in, but I don't. You can't even feel disappointed with that. If you're Liverpool, it's just it's just you were coming up against a machine in City that just win and win and win. And City lost 4 games this season. Last season they lost how many? 2. The only team to beat them at the Etihad, by the way, Crystal Palace. I just thought I'd put that in there. But for anybody to criticise Liverpool's season, I think is very unfair. They were absolutely outstanding. They played some brilliant games. They've played massively entertaining football. They sorted out the issues that they had last season with defence and the goalkeeper. And they've just looked like a phenomenal team. I'd say, if with them and Man City currently, they're neck and neck as the best teams in the world, genuinely. And to see them go up against each other week in, week out and win and win and win is phenomenal to see. I think, Liverpool are going to go again next season. I mean, it's tough to say what have you got to do to beat Man City, because they are just this machine, and they'll strengthen in the summer. I'm sure Liverpool will strengthen in the summer. But you look at those two teams and you go, there's not that many glaring weaknesses in either of these teams now. The only probably thing I would say about Liverpool is that they maybe a little bit more backup for the front three in Mane, Firmino and Salah. I think Shaqiri did okay, but he did go a bit out midway through the season. Origi has kind of come in the last few games and been brilliant. Sturridge has been very hit and miss. I don't think he'll be there next season. Origi, especially obviously in the Champions League. I'll talk more about that, I guess, when I do my video after that Champions League final. But I will say that those 2 semi-finals, the second legs, were 2 of the most phenomenal football matches I've ever seen in my life, and I include World Cups and things like that in there. They were just out of this world. As I said, it's been an amazing season. But yeah, I'd say maybe Liverpool need a little bit of backup there. Again, it's difficult to attract world-class players when they might not possibly be playing week in, week out. So it's a tough one. City, where are the weaknesses with them? The only weaknesses I'd say possibly they have, and I don't think next season it will be, but maybe the season after, Aguero, he's getting on a little bit now, and Fernandinho as well is getting on a little bit. Weirdly, I was playing some Football Manager the other day, and Man City brought Milivojevic from Crystal Palace. I was like, that's not a terrible shout as a kind of Fernandinho kind of replacement there. I don't think Man City would obviously do that. I think they can go out and buy whoever they want in the world. But I was like, that's not actually the worst shout in the world. As somebody who can just be patient with the ball, break up play, that kind of stuff. And he's been exceptional for Crystal Palace this season again. So, I think City kind of need to look at that. But otherwise, they sorted out their goalkeeper, very well. And they just have such a phenomenal lineup. I would say maybe going into next season, I don't know about David Silva as well, but I don't even feel like they need to replace David Silva, because I feel like they've got someone like Phil Foden coming through who's just going to slot straight in there. It's scary, really. What scares me even more is if Man City had kept hold of Jadon Sancho. That would have been really scary. But, obviously they didn't. So yeah, I mean, I don't see that either team necessarily needs to strengthen. They will do because they want to beat each other, I guess. Are we going to see a Real Madrid-Barcelona style league appear where, you know, you have these two top teams battling week in, week out, and the rest of them are kind of battling for third and fourth? I mean, that's what we got this season for absolute sure, but I don't necessarily feel like we're going to have that next season. If we're talking about Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United, I weirdly feel that a lot of people have been exceptionally critical of Chelsea this season. In actual fact, in my predictions, I had Chelsea down for 6th because I felt like they didn't have a very good transfer window at the beginning. And with Sarri coming in and trying to change the philosophy, I did feel like they would struggle. Now, on paper, you look at Chelsea finishing 3rd, Europa League final. They're in the League Cup final. They got beaten, obviously, by City. Not the worst season in the world by any means. Like, I think if you said to Chelsea fans, you're going to finish 3rd in Sarri's first season, you're going to be in the Europa League final, so potentially, you know, silverware there. And, you know, you're going to get to 2 finals. I think they would be like, yeah, that's pretty good, actually. You know, I think the issue has been around the style of football that they've played. Sarri is obviously not, you know, endeared himself to the Chelsea fans. You know, he's not really managed that kind of PR side of things that well, I guess. A little bit. We've had all sorts of weird situations come on. The whole Kepa thing in the League Cup final, etc. Yeah, I don't feel, you know, I saw Gary Cahill kind of leaving and, you know, doing some parting shots at Sarri and saying that he wasn't happy with the way he was treated. And all of these things, I think, have led to, I don't know if they're a majority, but certainly a vocal, you know, amount of Chelsea fans, you know, not wanting Sarri there next season, which you kind of think is weird because he hasn't done badly, you know, and I certainly felt like he didn't get enough of his own players in. He got Kepa, the keeper, who they had to buy because Courtois obviously went. I think it's safe to say that if they hadn't have sold Courtois, they wouldn't have brought Kepa. Now, you can argue left, right and centre whether that was an upgrade or not. Courtois has not had a good season in Madrid. So you could argue and say, well, that was probably a decent bit of business with hindsight there. I don't think at the time, if you'd have offered Chelsea, you know, 35 million and keep Courtois rather than have Kepa, I think they would have kept Courtois, in all honesty. But that didn't happen. And yeah, when you look at it, I think the other frustrating thing for Chelsea fans has been the emergence of some of the young players like Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Sarri not really utilising them as much as he as they would want him to, shall we say. The striker issue at Chelsea has been an ongoing thing. I feel like if they did have a very good striker up front, like Diogo Costa or Didier Drogba, they would have been closer to Man City, Liverpool. I don't think they would have challenged for the title, but I think they would have been a lot closer. They've been in the 80s, I think, perhaps. And things might have looked a bit better, but, you know, Higuain, I don't think it took a genius to work out that Higuain would not do well in the Premier League currently. The guy doesn't look particularly fit, and he's coming to the twilight years of his league, and he's played in a slow league for the last few years. He's obviously very technically gifted, a very good finisher, has an eye for goal. I just feel like, personally, I feel like Chelsea would have been better off using Batshuayi, who I think actually had a pretty decent loan spell at Crystal Palace, when he came back, and I think that would have actually been better for them as they actually own that player rather than paying Higuain's extortionate wages, 300 grand a week or whatever the hell it was that he was getting at Juventus, I want to say. Yeah, he's still out. I think he went on loan to AC, didn't he, and then went back, and then Chelsea took him on loan, I think. So that's the way it worked out. So yeah, will they replace Sarri? I don't know. I think if they win the Europa League, I'm not sure he'll go. Or if he does, I think it might be more his choice, because I'm not sure he's particularly happy with the situation there. The other situation Chelsea have is this transfer ban, which is looming. Could potentially not be able to buy any players for a couple of windows, which would be pretty crippling for them. Of all the teams, though, I'd say Chelsea are the ones who could handle that the best potentially, because they have such a good kind of like young players, and it would be about time for them to flip and use some of them, for goodness sake. So I would actually kind of, in a weird way, would want to see Chelsea get that transfer ban and potentially Sarri stay and actually use some of those young players to come through, because I think that would be pretty exciting. I'd love to see Callum Hudson-Odoi, go, and I'd love to see Loftus-Cheek getting more games, and a lot of the other guys, the guys like Mason Mount and players like that who've been on loan and done really well this season on loan in the Championship. There's the young Welsh defender as well, I forget his name, Ampadu I think it is, who looks exceptional. Tammy Abraham's been banging in the goals for Villa in the Championship, and it would be awesome to see them actually get a chance at the Premier League. I'm not saying Chelsea would win the league next season with that team, but I think it would. I think the fans would want to see that. I certainly would. If I was a fan, I'd love to see more homegrown players come through and given a chance, rather than being sold and then brought by another Premier League team, 2 seasons later and look phenomenal like De Bruyne and Salah. So could be a good thing for Chelsea in a way, not ideal, but could be, because then you have the big thing with Chelsea, and that's Eden Hazard. I'm speaking about Chelsea so much because I feel like so much has gone on with them this season, and it will be such a big pre-season for them. Eden Hazard, I think, I'm 80% sure he's going to leave for Real Madrid. I think the only stumbling block is the fee of how much Chelsea are going to try and get for him. It seems to me like he wants to go. I think he realises he's in a team which is not necessarily going to compete at the minute. I'm not sure he's entirely happy with Sarri as a manager. He's been played in this kind of false nine a few times, and I'm not sure he particularly enjoys that. And I think that he obviously idolises Zidane and would love to play for Madrid. And I think that it's time for him to move on from Chelsea and go and give that a shot. I think Madrid needs someone to fill those shoes of Ronaldo, and I think he fancies that. I think he fancies that big time, and I don't think anybody can blame the guy. I think even the most die-hard Chelsea fan would say, thank you very much for your service. You've been fantastic for us. Good luck in your next endeavour. We'll just have to take 80 to 100 million or whatever the hell, plus whatever, Chelsea can kind of haggle for. It does leave a massive hole, because Hazard's one of those players who's like, he's not at a Messi or Ronaldo level, but he's kind of similar to like a Neymar level, around there. So he is an exceptional player who would walk into any team in the league or any team in the world probably. And you cannot replace those very, very easily. We'll come on later, I think, to an idea I have that Chelsea could replace Hazard with, but probably won't. But yeah, it's going to be a big season for Chelsea. Obviously, I don't think they're going to do anything until after the cup final. They did just play a friendly last night, weirdly, in America, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek sprained his ankle. I can't believe the stupidness of playing that friendly. I understand it was for charity and it raised a lot of money for charity, but why not just be like, hey, you know what, we're going to move it till after the Europa League final? Like, it just idiotic, really. I don't think it was Sarri's fault or the team's fault. I think it was obviously the money people upstairs who were doing that sort of thing. But there you go. I guess we move next on to Tottenham Hotspurs, another team who's had just a crazy season. Obviously, Champions League final, massive for them, absolutely massive. If you said to me at the beginning of the season Spurs are going to be in the Champions League final, I would not have believed you at all. Or even just, looking at their form in the last 5 games, it's just, they've been so up and down. Didn't buy a single player. Unheard of in modern day football, really, isn't it? And unheard of in the Premier League because of the stadium, I guess. I say I guess because they're kind of not really saying that that's the case, but I think we all know it is the case. New stadium looks great. Got delayed several times across the season. Eventually they got in there. the Champions League has really been their campaign this season. They've been out of that Champions League so many times and then managed to come back at the death that I just almost feel like they're going to win it. I just have this feeling. I personally would love to see Liverpool win it because I think it's been soul destroying almost to see them, come second with 97 points there. I kind of feel like they've earned a trophy this season at least. But also, I couldn't argue if Spurs won it either because, Pochettino's just done an amazing job there. They've had so many injuries this season. Harry Kane's been injured a lot this season, who's a massive player for them. And they've just managed to get through, Fair play to them. League season, very up and down, very, very up and down, really. Just about managed to make it into fourth. With Arsenal in fifth there, 1 point behind. Need to buy some players, don't they? I mean, that's what they've got to do. They've got to spend some cash next season and strengthen that squad because they can't go another season like that. I think Pochettino will just walk out. I think his head will explode if they don't sign a player. It's got to happen. But I think they'll be pretty happy. A Champions League final in fourth place, they'd have taken that at the beginning of the season, without a doubt, without a doubt. So, yeah, I guess fair play to them. It'll be interesting to see if they, again, can keep hold of some of their players. We say that every year. Defender-wise. Alderweireld, Vertonghen. It seems like Danny Rose, I think, is going to move on. Kane, Ali, Eriksen. Eriksen's been linked heavily with Real Madrid. We'll see. We'll see what kind of comes about from there. I've got some ideas about that as well. Arsenal in fifth, 1 point off Spurs. Just had a shocking, those loss in a row. They could have been fourth, couldn't they? I mean, you lose to Crystal Palace, Wolves, Leicester, concede 3 goals every game. That's been the story of their season. Defence. 51 goals conceded against, Spurs 39, Chelsea's 39. They scored, they scored 73. Lacazette and Aubameyang I don't think have had bad seasons. They've been scoring goals. They've just let them in so much, and they have to get that sorted. I think their goalkeeper's okay. I think they literally need an entire new defence, like right backs, centre backs, left back, holding midfielder. Like I think the rest of the team's okay. I mean, Ramsey leaving is a massive blow, and the whole Ozil saga is not good for the club. My personal opinion with Ozil is you either build a team around him or you don't bother at all. You get rid of him. So either you commit to him and the fact that he isn't really going to track back, he isn't that sort of player, or you don't bother, because where they're at the minute, where it's like, oh, we'll play him in like the home games, but we don't play him away from home and stuff like this, is like, this is this guy's on massive money and it's a waste of everybody's time, and he's clearly not very happy with the way things are going at the minute. So they have to do something. I don't know how, because I don't know which club in the world can afford to take him. Like, there's lots of clubs who would want to take him, but none of them are going to pay anywhere near the wages that Arsenal are going to do. So what's he going to do? My opinion is, I think he'll go out on loan somewhere. Arsenal will probably pay 50% of the wages, while the new club pay 50% of the wages, and he'll end up on loan in, like, I don't know, like Italy or, somewhere like Seville or something like that in Spain. That's what I could personally see as the only outcome here, because I don't think Emery trusts him to play him next season. I don't think he's going to build a team around him. And as a result, yeah, I mean, when you look at it like that, I guess, Arsenal are going to need a couple of decent midfielders as well. And this is just, for me, to get them back in the top 4. This isn't even necessarily to have them challenging for the league. I think they're a mile away from there, but they have been for a long time, so it's not really anything new. They could win. They could get in the Champions League if they win the Europa League. So I believe, I'm not 100% sure on how this works, but I think you can only have 4 teams from one nation in there. So I'm not sure what happens if Arsenal win the Europa League. Do they knock Spurs out of the Champions League? If Spurs win the Champions League and Arsenal win the Europa League, does Chelsea get knocked out of the Champions League? I actually don't know. I haven't looked it up, so apologies for being unprepared. But it'll be interesting. But I think overall, when you look in the big scheme of things, Unai Emery coming in and replacing a very, very established manager, a club legend, who, all right, didn't have the greatest a few seasons to go. Emery didn't really spend that much money. Like, I don't think he feel like he had like a real war chest, to go with. And I don't feel like they necessarily, brought that good of players either. I think he'll definitely be there next season, in my opinion. I think they'd be ludicrous to get rid of him. I feel like it's not been the worst season for Arsenal. Like, obviously, from a defensive point of view, I think they could have done much better. I don't think their defence is like terrible in such as like. I feel partly it's down to a coaching side as well, whether that's Emery or his coaches or whatever. I just don't feel like those players look very well drilled. I don't personally know, obviously what they work on in training or anything like that, but it doesn't look like they're very well coached or drilled. The way, if you think of like Arsenal defences of old, with Adams and Bold and Dixon and Winterburn and Seaman, they were drilled, to be defensively great. I feel like that's been something that's been missing from Arsenal for a long time, and I don't really know why, but it just has, I guess. But they know where they need to focus. They either do a Liverpool, Man City, where they focus on their weaknesses and buy players to fix it, no matter what they cost. Liverpool brought Virgil van Dijk, and it was a massive success. Rightly so, in my opinion, player of the season, just ahead of Sterling. Arsenal either do that, or they try and get some cut-price players in and work it out from there, which is probably the more likely options that they'll take. And that's why I think probably next season they'll struggle to hit the top four potentially again if Chelsea, Spurs and Man United all strengthen. And I guess speaking of Man United, that's what brings us on to our next point, who without doubt I'd say are the car crash of the season in Man United. They've, for a team who finished sixth, won 19 games, you wouldn't feel like they have, would you, to be completely honest? You feel like they would be like bottom half of the table with the negativity surrounding them and just the woeful performances they've put in. I mean, obviously started the season with Jose Mourinho as manager, and I predicted they would finish third. What an idiot I am. I thought that Mourinho would build on them, and they finished second the previous season to Man City. Mourinho said actually that was his greatest achievement. I kind of understand that now. They're in a similar position to Arsenal, I think, where they had this woeful defence. I feel like their attack is fine. Like, a lot of people have been kind of slagging off Lukaku and Martial and all those players. I feel like they're fine. I think where they really have a terrible time is particularly central defence. A right back. I can't believe they're still using Ashley Young as a right back. Like, it's 2019 even, sorry. Ashley Young should not be the first choice right back for any top six team, full stop. I'm not saying Ashley Young is a terrible footballer, I just think his time has passed. And I know that Man United did sign Dalot, and like there were probably problems there, and all this kind of thing, but at the end of the day, you're Man United, do you know what I mean? You're the richest club in the world, and they should have done so much better. Pogba, I mean, where do you go with Paul Pogba? At times he's been sublime this season, but unfortunately the majority of times he has been woeful. I had this feeling like he's not going to be there next season. I don't know, personally. I think he's a player like Ozil. You either commit to him, you build the team around him, or ship him out somewhere else. I know Juventus didn't necessarily build the team around him, but I felt like in midfield they did, where they had Pirlo, who kind of sat back a little bit, then Marquisio, who was more of a runner, and then Pogba was free to go forward a little bit. I think where they're expecting Pogba to be like the boss in midfield, it doesn't really work. I think he's better as an assistant manager, if you like, rather than a general manager in that midfield. I feel like he needs somebody there who almost will tell him on the pitch, where to go. I think he's got the technique, the skill of a world-class player. I just don't think he has the temperament or the game knowledge to be able to boss a midfield. And so Man United can either buy somebody who is able to do that alongside him. Someone like a Michael Carrick would have been brilliant, in his day, to sit alongside Pogba. I don't think Matic or Herrera or any of their other midfielders are anyway good enough to do that. I know Herrera's actually moving on anyway. It's going on a free, I think. So they either do that or don't bother trying to use Pogba, basically, because he just doesn't really work very well, I think. And the whole thing with United around recruitment and the people upstairs, I just can't work out why a team with the or a club with the resource of Man United just cannot get that side of things right. There has to be something around, I guess, Ed Woodward not wanting to give up power or anything like that. Maybe the Glaziers as owners are happy that the club's still making money, and until that changes won't do anything. But I just can't work out for the life of me why you would give Ed Woodward as much power in that club as he has when he clearly has no idea about recruitment or anything like that. Like the players he's brought over the years since he replaced David Gill, the vast majority of them have been terrible. Or just not necessarily terrible, but just average, just very average players. Like, I can't remember the last time Man United signed a player and like they were brilliant for them. Like, just sign a player and you're like, that was a brilliant signing. Like, who is that they've done? When you look at their team, kind of in there, the only players I think who actually look like they're going to turn into really good players is someone like Rashford, who's homegrown. Lukaku's been very hit and miss. Martial's been very hit and miss. Herrera, I mean, he's leaving Herrera, so he clearly hasn't worked out. Matic, I don't think he's had a good season at all. And people can say, oh, well, these were Mourinho signings or whatever, but, like, in modern day football, I feel like you have to have this. People talk about this technical director or director of football or whatever, but I think you have to have someone on that side who is doing the recruitment. Not necessarily, like, obviously the manager should always have input into the recruitment, but they should be the ones scouting and giving options to the manager and having chats, talking about it. It just doesn't feel like any of that's happening. Like, they're just buying a player and no idea of how they actually fit into the team. Clearly they have to do some massive work this season if they want to get anywhere near the top four, let alone compete for the league. Like, they're a mile away at the minute. They had that little spell when Solskjaer came in where everybody started to look good and there was this feel-good factor come back to Man United, but they looked woeful again towards the end of the season, and you can see their form: lost, drawn, lost. Last 5 games, losses to Everton 4-0, Man City 2-0, Cardiff City 2-0, drew with Huddersfield Town 1-1, Chelsea 1-1. I mean, that is just shocking. They were 5 points off a Champions League place. They dropped 3 points there, 2 points there. I mean, sure, goal difference they wouldn't have been there, but as they blew it. They completely and utterly blew it this season. 54 goals conceded, only 65 scored, which I guess is okay. 65 is fine, but 54 conceded. Their defence is so bad; it's woefully bad. And as a team effort, I'll be the first to say, I don't think Solskjaer should have got the job full time. I think they should have stuck with him till the end of the season. I think they could have made a more informed decision then. He had a little bit of a good run and then they gave him the job. I don't expect him to see out a full season next season. Honestly, don't. I think they should have just put all their money into getting Pochettino from Tottenham. At the end of the season, they should have... I don't know why I can see this, and probably every other Man United fan out there can see this, and yet someone like Ed Woodward cannot see this, that Solskjaer is nowhere near qualified enough to be manager of Manchester United. Like, look at the managers you've had in the past few seasons, okay? Jose Mourinho, one of the greatest managers in history, okay? Whatever you want to say about him, He's won 3 Champions League at 3 different clubs, multiple leagues, multiple different divisions. He's won the Spanish League, he's won the Italian League, he's won the Portuguese League, he's won the Premier League multiple times. One of the greatest managers there's ever been. Louis van Gaal, again, very highly decorated manager, very highly thought of by people. Won multiple leagues, managed internationally, has this philosophy he wanted to get behind. David Moyes, okay, doesn't quite fit in there, but they wanted to give, I guess, somebody homegrown in the league who overachieved for many seasons with Everton, and I don't think anybody argued that he deserved a bigger job than what he was getting. Clearly didn't work out for him, but there might have been other reasons like recruitment and such like that, which didn't help him. And obviously before that, he had the greatest manager of all time, Alex Ferguson. And then you bring in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yes, legend at the club, if you want to use that term. I don't necessarily agree legend of the club. I think favoured personnel, as football manager would say so. Who has managed Cardiff City, who got relegated in the Premier League, when he was there, and Molde in Norway. Like, what are you doing? Mauricio Pochettino has constantly overachieved with Tottenham. He has a philosophy there. He has grown players, brought players, homegrown or young players, and moulded them into world-class players. Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Ericsson. The list goes on, doesn't it? Worked on a small budget. What Pochettino could do with the budget of a club like Man United, he'd been back up there. I guarantee you a Man United team with Pochettino as manager would be competing for the league. I'm not necessarily saying they will win the league, and City and Liverpool are exceptionally strong, but they would be competing. I just feel like Solskjaer, Man United next season are just going to be a car crash again. I don't know what it's going to take. They're in Europa League next season, Man United. Who are they going to attract? I don't even know. I just feel for me like there's such easy wins there for them. Like, just build that infrastructure there. When the owners at Man City took over, like, immediately they brought in what's his name, Tixi Bergstein or something like that, I believe, who was like the director of football at like Barcelona, and basically said to him, build Barcelona. And they built this amazing academy, which they're getting the fruits from now with players like Phil Foden, etc. Coming through. They spent a lot of money, but the recruitment of those players worked very well. And manager wise, they've been very smart. I think Pellegrini was a good manager for them. I totally understand why they wanted to go to Pep Guardiola, and that's obviously worked out. He's won them 2 leagues in 3 seasons, and other cups, as well. And they built that club. And if I was in Manchester United, I'd be looking at them going, this is what we need. We need that director of football to build this club. I just feel maybe like Ed Woodward doesn't want to give up that responsibility he's got. Maybe he feels like, from what everyone says, he's brilliant at the monetary side of the club. It's just he's rubbish at the football side of it. So just bring someone in to work on there. It just beggars belief that's the way they're running this European super club. Who there won't be a European super club much longer if they keep going this way. So I had them down for 3rd. Clearly they've got some issues there. Let's have a look at who else I had. So I had Chelsea down in 6th. They obviously did better, but I said at the time I felt like that 4 could be interchangeable. I got Tottenham and Arsenal right, but I felt like that 4 could be very interchangeable depending on what happened across the season. I think they were. So I had Everton in 7th, and I had West Ham, then Palace, then Leicester. Now, I wasn't too far away with here. To be fair, West Ham, Everton were around there, and Leicester. Wolves, though, were definitely a surprise. I think I had Wolves. I think I scrolled down in a second in this video, yeah. I had Wolves down in 12th. They had a really great season. Built up, a really good team, work well, work hard, FA Cup semi-final, exceptional season, first time in the Premier League, you're in 7th. That's brilliant. That's incredible. Wolves fans have just got to be delighted, I think, with the season they've had. I thought they'd be up there or thereabouts. I didn't think they'd ever be in trouble with relegation. They just looked too strong last season in the Championship, and I thought they brought particularly well. They've got a couple of really good forward players in Jota and Jimenez, who I think both look really good. And I think they'll build on that next season. I think they'll make some purchases, build their team, strengthen it. They've also had players, who they brought up through the Championship who have just performed this season brilliantly, and I think they'll be there or thereabouts next season. I don't think they're going to have quite enough to crack the top six unless one of them explodes, implodes rather, in Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United. But I think at the minute, they can feel very proud of where they are, definitely in the league. Very hard to beat side, doing very well. Took a lot of points off clubs at the top. Who their wins? Yeah, beat Arsenal comfortably. Watford, beat Fulham just about. Yeah, and I mean Everton. I feel like in the end, you look at that and go, it was an okay season, but for large parts of it, they were very, very poor. It surprised me that. I completely forgot the name of their manager. God, it's gone from me. But I was surprised that he managed to keep his job for the whole season. But fair play to them. I think they can go on next season and push on. Hopefully, push upwards, because I feel like they're the ones who are the most equipped to challenge that top six. Ish, I guess. Marco Silva is the name of the manager. Sorry, Marco. I feel like they're equipped, but they just never quite seem to get there, do they? No, not quite. They're definitely missing a striker, 100%. I don't think that's the only missing link they've got, but that would go a long, long way to helping them out. Otherwise, they've got some decent players. Richarlison, I think, has actually had a decent season. I think Pickford actually had a pretty bad season overall. I think he had some clangers, but they can get better. They've got to do some recruitment, some areas of weakness this summer, which I think they'll do, but I don't think they'll be too disappointed with 8th, perhaps. Just disappointed, I think, with some parts of the season where they were really bad. Leicester in 9th. I think Leicester are going to be a dark horses next season. Under Brendan, I mean, this form here doesn't really suggest that they were doing too much, but I mean, they lost to City, which is no disgrace, drew Chelsea, smashed Arsenal, drew West Ham, got beat by Newcastle. Before that, they did win a few. And I think with Brendan there, as controversial as it was that he went there over staying at Celtic to do the treble, which is kind of ridiculous. I feel like next season they could be the dark horses if they buy some players. They've got some good players, and I think Brendan Rodgers, he's playing some good football there. So I'm looking forward to seeing them next season and what they do. They could, you never know. For me, either they're going to be challenging to push, the 6th, 7th, or they'll just finish mid-table again. That's what I kind of feel with Leicester. I don't think they're going to go down or anything like that. West Ham had a late rally to get up there into 10th. I think they've had a bad season though. They spent a lot of money. They did have some injuries. I don't think Pellegrini's going to be too happy with where they finished. They had a terrible start though, if you remember. So 10th, I feel like that's fine for a first season for them. I don't think they're going to be too distraught at 10th, but they will be expecting better next season. Watford had a late collapse, I guess, to give away 10th and 9th, I guess. They'd had a good season overall before that. They were in an FA Cup final. They could win the FA Cup. I feel Man City are going to have too much for them. I think if they play 100 times, Man City win 90 times. You never know if that 1 in 10 times is going to happen now, I don't know why I said 90 times out of 100. If they played 10 times, Watford might win once. That would have been a better analogy, but There you go. You come here for classy analogies. Good luck to them. I kind of hope they do beat City in the final. It'd be great to see Watford in Europe. And I think they've had a decent season. Like, they've recruited pretty well. They've got some decent players. I don't think they'll be unhappy with 11th, personally. Just feel maybe there's an opportunity lost in those last 3 games. You know, if they win those last 3 games, that's 59 points. They're 7th. You know, that's the way it goes. And they were playing against Wolves, so they, you know, even a draw there, they could still finish there. Chelsea, they lost, and West Ham 4-1. That would have hurt them. You know, they could have finished above West Ham just with a draw. There's a lot of prize money as well for each place in the Premier League. Like, you're talking millions difference between places, so I'll be disappointed with that. Then we come to my club, Crystal Palace. In the end, 12th is not disgraceful for a club the size of Palace. We don't have the money to compete with an Everton or Leicester or a West Ham. But I do feel like it was a disappointing season for us. I had high hopes this season. I felt that... excuse me while I get a drink. One sec. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Just had a real tickly throat and I felt better get a drink. So, yeah, I feel as a Palace fan, it was a disappointing season. I felt like, I mean, I predicted as well that we would finish 9th. So we're not too far away. We're only 12th. But I did have high hopes that we might challenge for that Europa League places, or something like that. Because it was really hopeful more than anything, because I generally felt that if we managed to get into Europa League, we would keep hold of some of our good players, Wolves Zaha in particular. I feel finishing 12th, that's not going to happen. Standout breakthrough for us was Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who, fantasy football favourite because he was so cheap at the beginning of the season. He has been phenomenal, though, really phenomenal. Very strong, links away, especially Man United, and I can't blame anyone for, I couldn't blame him if he wanted to move on. He's looked phenomenal. I think it might be a bit early for him. I think another season would be good for his development. I think maybe he'll look at the Wolves situation and go to Man United too young and learn from that. But Man United are crying out for a right back, and he would be kind of perfect there if he could slot in. But you don't know, do you? I guess I'm telling you something. They're going to have to pay a lot of money if they want him. But he's been outstanding. I don't feel like we've had a terrible season in terms of like player performances. Hennessy, a weird season in goal, and I think Gorita going forward should definitely be our number one, just because firstly he doesn't do Nazi salutes, which is a real thing, I think, something to bear in mind. But secondly, he's just not very good. Big shout out to Speroni, who after 15 years is leaving the club. Words like club legend get thrown around a lot, like with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United. Speroni's a true legend. 15 years at a football club when you're not an academy product is phenomenal. He will be missed. You could see how emotional he was, leaving, and hopefully the club at some point finds a position for him, whether it's as an ambassador or a coach or something like that. I'm 100% sure we will. I think he's going to go and still try and play, which is why I think he's leaving, and good luck to him. Whoever gets him, you're going to get just a stand-up great guy. He owns a restaurant in Croydon near Crystal Palace, actually, called Speroni's. So he's very kind of like he's loved by the club. Like if you had to say to me who's probably your number one legend at the club, it would be Speroni, without a doubt. 15 years, been a phenomenal goalkeeper in that time. Been up and down, stayed with us in the Championship, and he probably could have gone to bigger clubs, without a doubt. and just an overall legend through the dark days of administration, everything. So fair play to him. And Punchin as well, leaving after 6 years as well, another great servant to the club. Just overall, like, we'll miss those though. Big personalities in the dressing room. I worry about Roy. He's now the oldest manager there's ever been in the Premier League, beating Poppy Robson. He's like 71. He's clearly not a long-term manager. I think he'll probably do another season with us. I just kind of worry a bit about him, the stresses of Premier League management and his age and stuff. But hopefully he'll be okay, and hopefully he'll, take the time to leave when he wants to. But I think he's done a good job since he's come in. Very underrated manager. I've always felt that. Just had a couple of high-profile jobs which didn't work out. Liverpool and England, really. Although, it wasn't a disaster with either of those. Just, I guess, the way they ended wasn't very good. Especially with Iceland and that. I think last season it was all about us keeping Wilf, and if we can keep him for another season, and progress onwards. I can't see Crystal Palace keeping Wilfried Zaha. He's far too good for us. He's far too good for probably every other team in the Premier League, barring the top 3 or 4. I think he's too good for Arsenal, Man United at the minute. He would walk into any side in the Premier League, and I mean Liverpool and Man City. And I know that that's a biased opinion, but I just feel like he plays phenomenally week in, week out in a Crystal Palace team that struggles. What people look at assists and goals, they don't. If you watch him play, you will see how many chances he creates for this club. And if we probably have had Batshuayi from the beginning of the season, I think we would have been way higher up, and I think his assists would have been way higher as well, or even goals. But also the amount of penalties he wins, and people call him a diver. That is not the case at all. Like, it's, people love to just throw that around. Oh, this guy wins penalties, he must be a diver. In actual fact, what you'll find is a lot of the time he doesn't get the decision because people think he's diving and he's not. So he probably should have had quite a few more penalties than he actually had. But yeah, for me, like, Will Zaha's as good as Mohamed Salah. I just think Salah's in a way better team. And I think if Chelsea are looking to replace Eden Hazard, Zaha's right there. If you get 100 million for Hazard, spend 80 of it on Wilf. That's how much Palace are asking for, and I don't think they would be. I think he would do a phenomenal job. Same with Spurs as well. If they want to challenge, I think Wilf's there. And if Liverpool want to have a player who they can rotate in and out in that front three they have, I think Zaha's your man. Like, he's a lot of money. I appreciate that. He's 26, but he's phenomenal. He's the best player outside of probably the top 4 teams. I don't think there's a player in Man United or Arsenal who is better than Wilf Zaha. And that might be controversial because you're going to say, oh, yeah, but Pogba. But I mean, what in flashes, Pogba's looked good. I think Wilf this season has just been, fantastic. So you might argue someone like Aubameyang or whatever is better. So you might be right there. But overall, as I said, I think he would walk into pretty much any team in the league, bar the top 2, and then I think he'd still get a lot of games for the top 2 because they rotate a lot anyway. So, I don't think he'll be there at Crystal Palace next season, and I am fine with that because he deserves to go on and play at a bigger club. He's given us a lot of seasons when he could have moved on. He's always played well for the club. Has been a legend for the club, in terms of, not in the Speroni terms, but like, he's been an ambassador for the club. When the women's team were trying to raise money, he just outright paid. I think they were trying to raise like 15,000 or something like that for their season. He just paid it, just outright paid it. So there's a lot of love for the club. He's paid pretty well for the club. From what I understand, he's on over 100,000 a week, but he could double that, potentially triple that at one of the big clubs. I mean, you look at a player like Alexis Sanchez on 500 grand a week. I didn't mention him at Man United, but he has obviously for me been just the super flop of the season. I said one of the reasons why I thought that Man United would finish third, because I thought he had no World Cup. He'd have a summer to train and prepare and just come back roaring. I thought it was fatigued that he had such a bad second half of the season last year when he transferred to Man United. No, it just turns out he's terrible. Or just doesn't give a damn anymore, just wants to take the money. I don't know what it is, but he's been terrible for Man United. And if he's on 500 grand a week, then Wilf on 300 grand a week would not seem far-fetched to me. But yeah, people will disagree, and people will think that Wilf's overrated or whatever. I don't think those people watch Crystal Palace, week in, week out. I'm not even talking about, I'll watch a highlights thing on YouTube of this player or whatever, but he works for a club. There's reasons why Crystal Palace, have managed to beat some of the top sides, and that's because there's a counter-attacking threat. He is brilliant. People talk about you need a player who holds the ball up. He holds the ball up in a way, if you have a big, strong striker, say we have Benteke, he holds the ball up. He can hold the ball up because he can stop the opposition player from being able to get near it with his upper body strength. Wilf will just run at players, and that's the way he holds the ball up, because he will run at them, do trickery, and that will allow other players to come and support him. He's been phenomenal. Townsend has had a pretty decent season, I think, as well. I think he'll still be there with us. Milivojevic, apparently we're in contract talks with him, but apparently he's not happy with what we've offered him. We just need to offer him whatever he wants, because the guy's quality. I think if Crystal Palace invest wisely after losing Zaha, they can still be good. If you look at Tottenham when they lost Gareth Bale, they had that 100 million in their pocket, and they brought on 4 or 5 players. Not too many of them worked out that well. I know some of them were like Lamela and stuff like that, but I felt like they've survived and even gone on to be better than what they were when they had Bale there. Because of the manager mostly, I guess, and because they brought through some good young players. Dele Alli, they obviously purchased for about 5 million or something. So I think it's not the end of the world if we lose Wilf, as long as we invest that money wisely. And I'm glad we're actually getting money for him and we're not just losing him on a free or something, because that would be horrific. But he's on a 4-year contract currently, so if you want him, you're paying for him basically. I think that could put off some clubs, and I'd hate to think that we're going to get to a situation where he's demanding a move and Palace are just asking for 100 million and no one's going to pay that, and as a result he's getting frustrated because he thinks we're pricing him out of the market, and then there's some beef. If he's going to go, let's accept a good offer. 75-80 million, in my opinion, is a good offer for Wilf. You could go as low as 60-65 potentially, but at the end of the day, we don't necessarily need to sell him from a financial point of view. It's just if he puts up a fuss and wants to go. But I'd like to see him, go, and everyone just hold their head up high. And Crystal Palace can say, well, we got a decent fee for him, considering we paid 12 million for him from Man United to buy him back when they bought him off us for 20. He's been a great servant for us, great ambassador for the club, and good luck to him in his next endeavour. And he can be I've played hard for this club. I love the club still, but time to move on to bigger things, and that would be cool. I'd be very happy with that. We need to get a striker. I don't think we can afford Batshuayi. I don't know if he necessarily would join us if we could afford him, which would mean selling Zaha, because then, you go backwards. But I'd like to see us pick him up, because I think he's looked really good in the last few games. Palace scored a couple of goals in the last game, and he's just looked a danger in the box, which we just haven't had. Benteke. I just don't know with Benteke. His confidence is shot. I feel like he needs to drop down a league or something like that and get some goals in the Championship or something like that, and then build his confidence back up, because he's just shot right now, unfortunately. I'll probably briefly go over a few of the rest. Relegation wise, we had Huddersfield, Fulham, Cardiff. I actually predicted here we go. I predicted Cardiff, Newcastle, Southampton to go down, with Huddersfield just avoiding it, although I said that they might get dragged in. The reason why I thought Southampton was because I just thought they were woeful last season. I thought Mark Hughes was a terrible manager. What I didn't really take into account was the fact that Mark Hughes would get sacked pretty quickly, and they bring in a guy who did okay with them, like Hasselhouten. Pretty bad form at the end of the season from Southampton, and I feel if Cardiff could have, like, for me, Cardiff shot themselves in the foot. They lost to Liverpool, no disgrace there. To lose to Fulham, who were already relegated, and Palace, who weren't playing for that much. They beat Man United, to be fair, but they could have stayed up. If they'd have just beaten Fulham, they would have stayed up. Think about that. If you'd have just beaten Fulham, who were already relegated, you would have stayed up, Cardiff. I feel like they shot themselves in the foot. I didn't have Brighton to be down that low. They were incredibly bad. They just sacked Chris Hughton, which I feel is a good decision. I don't think Chris Hughton's a bad manager. I just feel like he took them as far as he was going to go, and they can now move on. They were playing bad football, and they didn't look good at all. They were really bad. Huddersfield, I thought, because last season they did look good, and with Wagner staying around, I thought they might just make it, but obviously that Wagner just burnt out, didn't he? And the guy they got in obviously did nothing, and 16 points is pretty bad. We'll see what they do in the Championship next season. I think they're just going to languish around mid-table, personally, in the Championship. I just think they were pretty terrible. Fulham were the real surprise for me, because I had Fulham down like in... where did I have Fulham? I had Fulham in 11th. They got relegated. I felt like they had enough attacking power that they could have done something, but they let in 81 goals. I don't think their defence was that bad. I noted at the time that they hadn't brought defenders, and that was the massive weak point, and I felt the goalkeeper was a bit dodgy as well. That I didn't realise quite how bad Leeds defence were. 81 goals in 38 games. You're conceding 2 a game. Scored 34, which isn't good again. I thought they'd do better up front, Schürrle, Mitrovic, players like that, but just, they were gone, weren't they? Had some good wins on Scott Parker to begin with. Lost to Newcastle end of the season and there, but beat some all right teams, and they're already relegated. We'll see how Scotty Parker does in the Championship. Cardiff, I'm disappointed in. I thought Warnock would have just about kept him up. Newcastle, Bournemouth, Burnley all had very meh seasons, didn't they? Well, Newcastle, actually, that's a great season for them. I had them down to be relegated. That's a great season. I'm too harsh on them. They really didn't buy very many players. Mike Ashley, just give Rafa some money, for the love of God. Everybody wants it. Even as a Crystal Palace fan, who Newcastle could finish above us next season quite easily. Just give him some money. The guy deserves it. He's working his arse off there. Give the guy some cash. Great season for them. Bournemouth, I conceded 70 goals. That kind of says it all. It was very hit and miss for them. Have some great players going forward. Great first half of the season. Completely collapsed second half of the season. We're lucky not to get dragged into a relegation battle, really. I think Brighton and Southampton only stayed up because there were 3 worse teams than them, really, truthfully. They were both pretty bad this season. So, Crystal Palace as well. In the end, we were comfortably away from relegation, but we did flirt a little bit with them. I don't think anybody else around there was really, apart from West Ham at the beginning, people might have thought they were doing badly. But so I think I was generally right with a lot of things. I think the only thing I was massively wrong with was Fulham, and I think a lot of people predicted Fulham to be all right this season. If you spend 100 million and come into league, you damn well should expect to finish higher than 19th. And I think there's a lot of questions to be asked at Fulham Football Club about exactly what happened this season. But overall, I think it was a great season. Just the ups and downs, the challenges. I would love to have seen Cardiff stay up. I think that would have put the icing on the cake, but wasn't to be. We had a fantastic battle at the top, and I'm looking forward to next season and see where it goes, really. As I said, still a lot to play for 4 of these teams, because Liverpool, Tottenham in the Champions League final, Arsenal against Chelsea in the Europa League final. All of those teams need to win something this season, I think. There's not one of those teams. Well, I think maybe Spurs could get away and say, because of the whole stadium stuff and us not spending a penny, to get to Champions League final, finish 4th was decent. But Liverpool need to win something, because this whole thing around Klopp's neck of he hasn't won anything at Liverpool, has he had a good season or not? I think Klopp is a phenomenal manager. For me, he's up there with Pep as two of the greatest managers in the world right now. Just when you look at it in terms of building a club and everything that kind of comes with that as well, and having that team go out there and perform at the highest level week in, week out, no one can touch them. And yeah, I personally will probably be rooting for Liverpool in the Champions League final, but I also wouldn't begrudge Pochettino, who I also think is a great manager as well. We'll see. As for the Europa League final, I'd probably be going for Chelsea just because I hate Arsenal. And I kind of feel a bit sorry for Sarri, because I don't think he was supported enough when he came in, and he's had some shitty situations to have to deal with this season with Kepa and stuff like that. And I don't think he's helped himself this season at all, but I don't think he's had a bad a season as many people make out. And I think if he's like, well, if he wins Europa League, he can walk out of Chelsea with his head held high. He's like, I got him third in the league. I got him to, 2 finals. I won one of them. I got him into the Champions League. Like, if anybody said to a Chelsea fan that's what's going to happen, I think they'd take it. It's just sometimes his football has been so boring that I kind of understand why people want him out. But there you go. That's the long look at the Premier League this season. So who was top goal scorer in the Premier League? Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang with goals. Then Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah. Okay. Assists with Eden Hazard. Ryan Fraser with 14. Look at that. Trent Alexander-Arnold, a fullback, and Robertson, double figures for fullbacks. Jorginho with the most passes, but then Virgil van Dijk. Look at that. Crazy. That's what happens when you build from that. Look how many of these players are defenders. Like defender. Defensive midfielder. Kind of defensive midfielder. Just goes to show the way the game has changed. Like in previous years, you would have seen that, be so different. A lot more actual kind of midfielders and stuff like that on there. And then clean sheets, 21 for Alisson, 20 for Ederson. It's kind of crazy. Kepa with 14. Maybe he's a good buy. I don't know. 95 goals for City, 89 for Liverpool, 73 for Arsenal. If only you had a decent defence. And overall, most crosses by Everton. It's interesting, isn't it? There's my phone going off. But yeah, there we go. Let me know how you think your club got on. How you think your season went, who you think is going to win the Champions League final and the Europa League final, or who you want to win it for whatever reason. But I think it's been a great season. I've really enjoyed it. It came down to the final whistle. I never really felt like Man City weren't going to win the league when they were that 1 point ahead after Tottenham. I think I always felt like they were going to beat Man United, Burnley, Leicester, and Brighton. But Liverpool did brilliantly to keep hanging in there, and there's nothing between them, is there, apart from 1 point and 5 goals. What's that? Nothing. Till next time, guys. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.